November 15th, 2017 meeting of the Lake Havasu City Airport Advisory Board. We open our meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand and join me? Thank you everyone for attending. The next item of business is the roll call. Ms. Lichtel?
Shannon Stebbins.
Here.
Louis Worthy, absent. Dave McNary.
Here.
Steve Huff, absent. Brian Schultz.
Here.
Jeff Sayer, absent. Shannon Hicks.
Here.
Bill Boyer, absent. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We have some members that have work conflicts, and we also have one who is ill, so we do have a quorum, so we'll continue. The next item is a call to the public. We have an open call to the public. You're free to address us on any item that you wish to address us on that comes under the purview of this board. The only conditions are that if it's not on the agenda, we can't respond and have a two-way conversation, but we can correct facts, ask for the staff to look into things, or we can put it on a future agenda. So do we have any members of the public here that would like to address the board on any matter? Seeing none, we'll move on. The next item is the approval of the October 18th, 2017 minutes. Would someone like to make a motion to approve or have any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from last month's meeting.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any opposed? Unanimous consent for the minutes. The next item is item 6.1, the Airport Supervisor's Report. I'll turn it over to Steve Johnson for that.
All righty. The FOD grant project, it's still into ADOT. We've yet to get a response from them in regards to review, which is fine as the state coffers fill up with money that we can utilize for that project. Right now, the guesstimate is that we'll get that moving probably early in 2018. The electrical vault construction, that of course has been approved by City Council. The award for that project, the final consultant construction management contract with CNS has been approved by the city as well. Pre-construction meeting happened yesterday with staff, CNS, and the construction contractor. Current estimate is that we'll be in construction probably, if not mid-December, January of 2018. We have some minor contractual details we're working through, but those should be taken care of probably this week. MSD staff has gathered estimates on the taxiway alpha crack sealing as well as the rejuvenation product for the runway connectors. The contractor for the rejuvenation has been selected. And again, I'll go into more detail on that in a further report. The Hangar 24 Air Fest, Air Show, happened on November 4th. That was a Saturday. It was very successful, and I'll talk more to that a little later. In airport staff, we've been gathering information in regards to the car parking lot that we have on airport, and we'll be moving on cleaning that up shortly. We've been doing other things, which is why I haven't got to that. The D2 hangar development is moving forward. I believe the plans are into the city for review. I'm expecting that construction will probably again begin, if not December, January. And the self-inspection form for hangar inspections from the fire department, that checklist, should be revised shortly, and I believe that'll be sent out in January as well. And we will be beginning hangar inspections here shortly. Again, some of the events we've had of late has been where our focus has been. We will be reviewing or adjusting the signs as you come into the airport. Right now there are 5 of those. We're in the process of finalizing that dynamic, and then we'll probably bring something to you, a visual or something, before we actually build those up. It's just replacing what's there. The 99's air race was completed this last weekend. Again, successful, very successful. I will talk more about that in a little bit. Scope of work for the master plan is into the city. It's been reviewed. The economic benefit analysis is not eligible for grant funding, but it's been included, and it looks like we'll continue with that. Electronically, you all have a copy of the scope of work, which is about 31 pages. It goes into a lot of detail. I'm working with CID staff right now to get the master plan independent estimate completed and move that along to take it to the City Council for contract with Kaufman, and then the other aspect would be submit a grant to the FAA no later than the middle of December. The ADOT grant for partial funding of the construction of the electrical vault should be completed shortly, and then signed by the city and sent off to ADOT for okay by them. Our airport maintenance staff did a fantastic job assisting both with the air show and the 99's air race. And then all of the airline counters on the east side of the terminal have been removed. Those areas have been retiled. And then as far as events go, the 99's Air Rally for this year is completed. The Air Fest is completed. And the RCAF will be coming back for 4 weeks between January and March of 2018.
Thank you. Any questions? Comments? The next items begin the public hearings. The first of which is a report and discussion regarding the Hangar 24 air show. This discussion should be limited to the impact of the air show at the airport and how the airport can assist. It was privately put on, so we have no control over the actual event itself. But can you tell us what the economic impact was and how many people we think attended? And
Yes, actually, I'll, if you don't mind, I'll hit Hangar 24 and then go into the air race as well.
we need to do them separate because they're 2 separate items.
Right on. Okay, so the Hangar 24 piece of it, again, it was the first Air Fest or air show we've had at the airport since 2001. It was very successful. The target attendance from the people putting it on was 3,000 people, and we continue to get data coming in that regard. But that being said, folks viewing the event range, and this is based on surveys of parking lots and where people parked that weren't parking lots. But right now the thought is it's somewhere between 7,000 to 10,400 people that were out there. So it's the largest amount of people we've ever had at any event at the airport. And some of the 250 volunteers participated in the event, some of whom were the high school Key Club, the 99's, Experimental Aircraft Association, of course, airport staff. Our airport FBOs were both involved, police explorers, and the Arizona Rangers. 20 vendors were on site, 5 of which were selling food, 5 nonprofits, and 10 others which were local business commercial vendors. About 155 room nights at local hotels were purchased. Total aircraft on display or performing were 31. The total performers, including the band or bands, was 15. Number of sponsors, approximately 10. And during Saturday, when we had the air show, 17 air show acts over a 4-hour time span. Right now, the estimate in regards to economic impact was $220,000.
Any questions or comments from members of the board? From my perspective, the impact on the airport operation was minimal. The people who ran the air show worked with any airplane they needed to arrive or depart during the TFR times. And aside from those of us locally who didn't go fly during those times, the impact was way less than I thought it would be on it. We managed to get the commercial operators who had jet charters in and out without any issues at all. This is a public hearing. Let me open it up to members of the public for comment. Seeing none, is there any more discussion? The next item is report and discussion regarding the Havasu 600 air race. And once again, Steve, could you lead us through that, please?
Certainly. Again, this event happened this last weekend, November 9th. And basically the race began in Mesquite, Nevada, covered 3 states, 600 miles, 16 teams that participated, up from 11 in the past year. The different stops were Sun Valley, Wickenburg, Chirocco Summit, Borrego Valley, Chirocco Summit again, Indian Hills, and then the finish, of course, at Lake Havasu on Saturday. The participant teams included women, men, and mixed teams. Again, 3 states. We had a banquet in the terminal that was 70 to 80 people on Saturday night. And again, the volunteers included different chapters of the EAA and 99s, Civil Air Patrol, airport staffers at most of the airports that had stops, and probably broadly about 50 people who were involved in that regard. The event is an annual event. It's a memorial air race in honor of Tukey and Don Hensley, who were both regional supporters of aviation and air racing. And again, the goal of the event is continuing education and raising funds for aviation scholarships. On this, the guesstimate is economic impact of about $5,910. And again, with both events, we've had a lot of compliments on the airport itself, airport staff, community friendliness and support and all that. And this sort of equates to both, but more to the Hangar 24, and I'm going to read this to everybody if you don't mind. This is from Sue Cook, and this was sent over a couple days ago.
Can you tell us who Sue Cook is?
Sue Cook is one of the principals of Hangar 24. And she's one of the people that helped put this on. I mean, there was quite a huge team of people, but she was one of the focal points. It reads, "My husband and I are the coordinators of this event, and we'd like to commend the city of Lake Havasu for their support and patience, as this was our first event here. Everyone we dealt with at the city, Scott Hartman, Steve Johnston, Brian Allen, I would also say, not that she has it in here, Paul Blazer at the airport, Rondi as well, and every employee I talked with could not have been more informative and helpful. Like my husband said, Lake Havasu City has event management down to an art. We'd like to thank everyone for their help and support. We sincerely appreciate it. It was by far the easiest municipality that we've ever dealt with." A number of exclamation points. And then she continues, "Steve and his team were invaluable in their support and their introductions to the Lake Havasu Airport community. The EAA, the 99s, Desert Skies, Havasu Air Center, and all the hangar patrons were unbelievably supportive. It is typically a challenge to secure hangar space for our performer aircraft. However, at Lake Havasu City, Shannon from the EAA, Desert Skies, and Havasu Air Center provided these with no trouble, which is a huge issue that wasn't a huge issue there." And that's the end.
Can we get that? Maybe we could ask Mr. Shea if he would present that to the mayor, or at least make it be known. Is that it?
That's it.
Once again, from my perspective, the air race had little impact on any air traffic. That didn't disrupt anything, any of the normal operations, but it was widely supported. Shannon Hicks was the second place winner, team of her and her husband. Brian also competed. I I don't remember, what place did you come in, Brian? Eighth? There's nothing wrong with eighth place.
Oh, okay, Mr. Winner.
So it was a really good time, and the people who participated in this air race really learned a lot about aviation, and they had a great time. So my appreciation, Shannon, for putting this on. It's appreciated. This is a public hearing. Does anyone here like to make a comment on the Havasu 600 air race? Seeing none, we'll move to the next item. Discussion and possible direction regarding creation of Aviation Pre-Accident Plan Committee. The reason this is on here is so that we could appoint Jeff Sayer as the committee chairman to do this. Jeff is not here. He volunteered last month. So
I motion to,
I think we should have a motion to appoint Jeff as the head of the committee. Do we need another member? Or is it, can just Jeff working with you be good enough for that?
I think that would work just fine.
Any discussion? This is a public hearing. Does anyone here would like to comment on the aviation pre-accident plan? Seeing none, I have a motion on the floor to appoint Jeff Sayer as the committee chairman for the aviation pre-accident plan creation.
I second.
Any opposed or any discussion? Any opposed? Unanimously carried. Rundy. Next item is the status update regarding taxiway and runway improvement projects, and that would be yours again, Steve.
All right, you have a report in front of you, and I'll go through both items here. The Rejuvenator, which again is the 5 connectors going out to the runway. Contractor has been selected. The city is generating a purchase order as we speak. This contractor has prior airport experience, which is always a plus. The application of this product will happen at 2 different times. So at one point, 3 connectors will be closed, at another point, 2. And when those connectors are closed, they'll be closed off for probably about anywhere from 3 to 4 days each time, which is going to, well, what's going to dictate that basically is the outside air temperatures. So this stuff will do its job. Given, I won't say the rapidly, but given the fact that the temperatures are declining this time of year, there is an opportunity for this to actually not happen until March. The other thing we've got going here is the RCAF coming back in January, the 20th, February the 4th, February the 17th to March the 3rd. Whatever business the FBOs have going at that time. I think the RV formation folks are due to come in at a different time in February. So that's 3, possibly 4 weeks that's locked up there. And if I recall correctly, didn't the EAA come and do their airplane rides? Wasn't that in February as well?
Yeah, but we are looking at March now this year. So.
Okay.
But yeah, we did that in February last year.
So given just the nature of what's going on and scheduling around everybody and keeping all the FBOs informed of what's going on so they can plan around this, it could work out that this, bless you, that this rejuvenation application happens later than sooner. The crack sealing for taxiway Alpha, again, the MSD division is generating, I'll get this out, an RFQ for the crack sealing. And again, we're asking for quotes. Typically, they ask anywhere from 3 to 4 different firms that they have past knowledge of. Again, a PO will be cut, and then we can go at that. Now, the one good thing about this is it's not weather dependent. Actually, the colder it gets, the better off you are. The thought right now is going to be that if it isn't done between now and December, it will happen again in early 2018. It'll be partial closures of taxiway Alpha, and again, the approach we're going to use to it is hit the worst cracks at the north end, some of which are huge, and then go south. So that's the approach on that. But again, we'll be scheduling through the FBOs. The dynamic here is we won't have the weather dynamic in play. So this will probably happen before the rejuvenator gets applied.
I have two comments. First, I'd like to thank Mark Clark because these are both unbudgeted items that he has evaluated and stepped up the plate and made happen. So thank you, Mr. Clark. And the other is to assure everyone that, as usual, Steve, you will put out NOTAMs and you'll work with everybody, I'm sure, to make sure that it minimizes the impact on the airport users. There's never been an issue since you've been the airport manager with anything like that, I don't believe. Let me open up to any comments or questions from any other member of the board. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment? Seeing none, we'll move on to our final item, 7.5, presentation of overview of the master plan process. And once again, that falls on you, Steve.
As you can see, this report is about 4 pages long. I won't go through all of the items. I'll just sort of give an overview here. Electronically, and we have a couple copies here, but electronically we sent you the scope of work, which again goes into inane detail in regards to what a master plan process is, and all the items that basically end up being looked at. In essence, what a master plan does, and this is a master plan update, it charts the proposed evolution of the airport to meet future needs. The magnitude and sophistication of the effort depends on the size of the airport. And of course, as you all know, we have a pretty decent sized airport. It presents the community and the planner's conception of the ultimate development of the airport. A master plan is typically good for 20 years. The key focus for it really is the first 5 to 8 years. That's when the major action happens. And after 8 years, you're supposed to do another master plan and update it. It also presents the research and logic that substantiates the plan in graphic and written reports. As some of you who've been to my office and seen the airport layout plan, it's a map that probably has about 16 layers of information on it, which is kind of difficult to follow unless you know what to look for. This process is inclusive of the local community, ADOT, and FAA. It includes a lot of public outreach and input. I mean, it's the whole premise, and the reason the FAA requires these is to have communities have a lot of input into the process and have some understanding of what's going on at the airport. And the FAA, not so much ADOT, but the FAA is heavily involved in this. Every time a chapter or a written paper is done, they're going to review it. They'll review the ALP and all that set of maps, and typically those maps are about 11 other maps. And they go into, I mean, the review process with them is pretty significant. And then outlined all of these different, and this came straight out of the scope, all these different items that get looked at and gone through. The one thing that is not part of this, and it's not eligible, but we've put in for it as well, is an economic benefit analysis of the airport and what it brings to the community, which I think is important. A number of people have said they want to see something of that nature. The CID department, is my understanding, will be managing this project. And there's one item that's listed on this roughly 2.25 pages that the FAA has already asked to be pulled off. We've not done that yet, but there's a line item for commercial air service demand in a study, and they've basically said that they would like that pulled off because that's really not a focus for us anymore.
Okay, from my perspective, you well know this. I believe in the economic benefit analysis as an integral part of this. Flagstaff just completed their airport planning process, and the estimated economic impact was $200 million. That, while I don't think ours is that large, I think it's larger than anyone here realizes, and I think that is a piece of information that the City Council has to have in order to determine what they want to do out of the master plan and what they don't want to do. That's just I certainly hope that we maintain the $16,000 or whatever it takes to put this as a line item.
At present, the two numbers that I've seen is $27,000 to $22,000 for an economic development. Economic analysis of the airport.
I think it's money well spent. Otherwise, how would we know what part of our general fund we want to expend at the airport? The other question I have is, what's the process for staffing and could you speak to the Planning Advisory Committee and how that functions?
As I understand it, once, again, right now we've gotten an independent fee. I'm reviewing that. CID's already reviewed it. We have an estimate of cost from our consultant, Kaufman. Once we negotiate that and we come to an amount, then the Kaufman company will basically be managing this project, doing the majority of the work. I believe, and I don't know this for a fact, that CID will have some staff involved as well. I'll definitely be, I'm assuming, involved since I'm the resident airport expert. Typically, if I recall correctly, when I first came here and we did a master plan update, we will end up forming, they call it a PAC, but it's an advisory committee. If I recall correctly, the last time around, that advisory committee was, I believe it was picked by the city manager, though I could be wrong about that. City council could have been involved as well, but there were a number of citizens involved. I believe somebody from the Airport Advisory Board was involved. Civil Air Patrol, as I recall, because they were a tenant, were involved. The FBOs were offered a place at the table as well. And then remembering the process, I believe there were either 3, 4, or 5 work sessions where the committee would meet and different chapters would be gone through beginning to end. Typically, I believe they limited it to 2 chapters per meeting. And there was back and forth in regards to questions, and everybody on the PAC typically got that information way ahead of time to where they could review it. And so, again, it was heavily involved with the public. The FAA typically is involved as well. Sometimes they show up if they can, and they participate. ADOT, I believe, is also offered a place at the table as well. So the premise here is, and what I recall too, with some of the citizens, they didn't have a direct connection to the airport, maybe an indirect connection, but they were involved as well. Some of the other places I've worked, if you had noise issues, serious noise issues, typically somebody from an anti-airport group would be involved in this as well as an educational dynamic. But again, it's very, and the FAA really wants it to be very inclusive of the public. And then typically once the master plan is adopted, in most instances I've seen, it ends up being folded into the general plan as a piece of that. I mean, you don't redo the general plan, but it becomes a part of that for the city. Is there anything else I can address?
I think that within the scope, it says it will be 20 members, and they would like to have, I'm here to lobby for at least 2 members of the airport board to be on that committee, and also tenants and airport users, and be on that committee. In fact, there's one person here in the audience tonight that I would probably invite to be on that committee as well. We need a wide range of viewpoints so that everybody's voice can be heard. So that's why I'm asking the question, who does the appointing and what the process is. So as we go down, as it comes down and this progresses, I'd like for you to bring that back to us maybe in your supervisor's report so that we can have some input into the Planning Advisory Committee. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question. On the document you presented, Steve, it says to develop an terminal area drawings. If we're not going to do commercial, if that's not going to be a priority, why are we developing terminal area drawings?
Great catch. Yeah, no, that would fall away as well.
Okay. And is there any opportunity to, does it hurt to keep the commercial on there?
It doesn't, but the people who are really driving this train is the FAA. And
Got it.
given the fact that they've already commented that that the whole dynamic of getting airline service here is so remote for this planning period, and again, we're talking the next 8 years, I can see where they're coming from. But yeah, that's a good catch, because the dynamic there would be for a new terminal. It's not existing remodel of what we currently have.
Okay.
So that's a good catch. Thank you.
Mr. Clark, did you wish to address
Sure.
the board?
Thank you. And what the staff has discussed is, we may not want to have a full-blown investigation of commercial air service, but we may want to have a paragraph or a section that addresses just, this is where it is, this is how it is, and this is some of the facts, so that the document does address that issue and recognize that things changed and that now we're dealing with, for the next 10 or 15 years, this current situation. Excuse me. So I think there should be something in there, but it may not be an actual, how do you return commercial air service, but just, hey, this is the facts and this is the reality, and maybe an overview of that.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to address the board on this issue? Any further comments? Future agenda items. Does any board member have an item they'd like to see on the next agenda? Future meetings. The next scheduled meeting is for Wednesday, December 20th, 2017. I'd like for the board's input on, this falls really close to Christmas, and I'm not sure that there will be a lot of people out of town. Would we like to entertain in canceling the December meeting? Thoughts?
I'm gonna be out of town.
I am going to be out of town as well.
We should probably just go ahead and cancel.
Someone would like to make a
I'll
motion. to-
motion to that.
Second, please.
I'll second that.
Without objection, then we are adjourned.